Hey everyone, this is Michael from Quest, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Reconnect Dive Deep session. I have a few reminders before we get started. Attendees have the capability to mute and unmute themselves throughout the call, but to be safe, please stay muted if you aren't speaking. If you have questions, please drop them in the chat, and the speaker will address them at the end of the session. This session is being recorded. After the session, don't forget to click the contest icon at the top of the Reconnect Who Below event page and enter your daily chance to win a $200 Amazon gift card. At this time, I'll turn things over to our speaker, Logesh Balasubramaniam.
Thanks, Mike. Greatly appreciate that. Let me share my screen and we'll get started. All right, let me move these Zoom controls out of my way so I can. All right, a very good morning to all of you. I hope you're all having a very good conference so far. The yearly virtual conference, Reconnect Deep Dive. Some amazing sessions that I have been part of earlier in the last 2 days as well. So this session is brought to you by three Oracle partners who had combined recently to become a larger organization. I myself am part of SpearMC. As Mike mentioned, Logesh Balasubramaniam, a senior director at SpearMC. And we recently joined forces with Mythix, who was an Oracle partner, and along with us also Smart ERP Solution. So many of you here might have had either worked with any one of us or multiple, many of us in the past as well. So glad to be here presenting the session today. Already covered that. So for those of you for whom this is my first session, I typically present at these conferences. So you might have been at an earlier session of mine and also have a couple more sessions later today as well. So post this session, if you have a need to reach out to me in regards to this session or any other sessions, my contact details are as part of this slide deck as well. I think an earlier version of it was uploaded as part of the content platform, but after the session we'll upload the complete latest final version of this presentation as well. Now, before we jump onto the topic, a very brief introduction about who we are as a larger organization. So Mythix is a completely Oracle-focused organization, and with Mythix now including both SpearMC and Smart ERP, the combined entity is pretty much offers end-to-end solutions, starting with license resales, ability to implement on-premise applications, and support the applications throughout its life cycle, upgrade them, and also ability to implement and manage and support the Oracle Cloud solutions as well across all the industries, all the states. So the combined entity has presence across all 50 states and have licensed vehicles with government entities, higher ed, and various institutes across the states as well. So just a little bit of an introduction about who we are and what we do. As I mentioned, this specific conference and this specific session is pretty much entirely focused on PeopleSoft. So we as a SpearMC as an organization was pretty much an entirely PeopleSoft focused organization, which we continue to be as part of the larger Mythix family of companies, and starting with training all the way to implementing, managing, and upgrading these applications. Happy to work with the PeopleSoft customers over 20 years now, and looking forward to work with many of you in the future as well. Now, as an organization, we are very well known for our trainings offering. So we do have a lot of new classes getting added to our training calendar as well. So if any of you are interested in training opportunities, here is a link and a quick QR code to get to our trainings page, where you have a training calendar that lists the various training classes that are scheduled in the coming months. Typically, November is a busy period for training. December, things are a little bit slow, but in Jan, we get into more classes. So we have classes scheduled until early next year, February, March timeframe. So when you get a moment, please do check it out as well. And as part of the slide deck as well, towards the end of the session, the training offerings, what classes are scheduled, there is more information on that as well. With that, let's jump into the meat of the session today. And the topic that we're going to be talking today is the fluid version of the performance management e-performance module, which essentially is the fluid version of the performance documents. And we have quite a few interesting aspects to discuss about that today. So I'll start with essentially a demo to go through how what it is, how it works, etc., and then talk about the nitty-gritties of it, how to implement it, what are the considerations, best practices, etc. And fluid e-performance as a functionality is relatively new. When I say relatively new, it's been a couple of years now, but performance management as a cyclical function happens once a year for most of the organizations and follows a particular cycle. So the adoption of fluid version of e-performance, I would say it started slowly, but also when it happens in sort of waves because typically the performance cycles of most companies follow a certain pattern. So as a module, as a function, it follows a specific cycle. So when we get into implementing these modules, it typically happens in waves. So at a time we are implementing at multiple customer sites. At times nobody is actively working on fluid performance at all. So that's been our experience in the last couple of years. But still, I would say it's relatively new functionality for most customers. We are actively talking and demoing to different customers as we speak, and we see a rather an uptick in the interest and adoption of this module as well. That's the reason to even submit and present this topic at this conference due to the interest we are seeing in that particular module. So majority of my focus today is going to be about discussing fluid version of e-performance. Where possible, I will highlight what has changed from the classic version. And so if there are anyone in the audience today who is not using classic e-performance and looking at the performance management as a module, um, completely new to your organization, or using maybe some third-party applications and want to do that activity within PeopleSoft, then this is going to be fully applicable to you as well. You can just ignore any comparisons from the classic versions because you don't really have to worry about it. Any customers who are newly implementing PeopleSoft e-performance would be doing it in the new version, right? So that's also an item I wanted to call out. Now, the journey towards a fluid version of e-performance has taken a couple of steps. So originally, when the fluid user interface was first introduced in the HCM application more than 10 years ago now, the navigations to performance documents was already in fluid version, meaning supported through mobile devices, right? So you had fluid home pages, fluid tiles, which would take you to a documents management page, which was fluid. And then the performance document itself, typically the long form document that was used for managing employee performance, was the classic version. And with the introduction of fluid performance documents, which came out in PeopleImage 45, so for those of you who are not aware, there is new PeopleImage, three new images every year. The latest one that came out was image 53, and the PeopleImage 45 sort of means roughly 2 years ago is when this functionality was introduced. And over the images since then, there has been updates and fixes, and it's a much more mature, stable solution right now. And when this was introduced in the PeopleImage 45, the end-to-end process that both the employees and the managers go through when it comes to managing performance is now using the fluid user interface, meaning it is a device friendly. You can do performance management in any device. So on the left-hand side in the screenshot, you are seeing here different ways to get to the documents. Like the first small window on the left top corner is the team performance, like the manager's way to go and access the performance documents of their employees. Or if there is an employee, then the bottom screenshot shows the My Documents, which is the self-service um, tile to get to the documents. They go to a documents page where if there are multiple documents assigned to them, they can see the document, see the summary info, and click to access the document in the and to see a view and work on the entire document. Now, the point of this info here is to basically show the end-to-end process is now mobile friendly, right? And one item before I actually jump into demoing the function is sometimes when a functionality is enhanced from classic to fluid version, most of it is like for like, and users don't see a significant change in terms of the functionality associated with that particular page or component that's being modified. But in case of e-performance, the fluid version of performance document has been created with sort of a completely redesigned mindset in terms of how the performance documents would be handled, right? So the performance process. So what it means is when employees and managers are now going through the performance process with this newer version of fluid performance documents, the entire activity could be done using mobile devices or tablet devices, which is essentially when it comes to self-service functions, most employees, managers uh, are intended to do, right? For example, especially when your workforce, depending upon the demography of your workforce, if they are of a relatively younger age group, then they tend to do most of these activities through mobile. So the idea has been to provide a mobile-friendly performance management process that the entire work can be done seamlessly using a mobile device. The reason I'm calling that out is for the demo today, I'm going to actually show you the process of working with a performance document on a mobile device. And the way I'm planning to do that is I have done this activity in my iPhone and have recorded a video. So I'm actually going to go through that and show you how the process happens in a mobile device. The reason I'm specifically calling that out is so many of the times when we do demos, fluid functionality, fluid pages, we do the demo in the system as if it's been done on a desktop device, though the pages are mobile friendly. But in this case, since it is employee facing self-service activities, manager facing self-service activities, the intention is for this new functionality to be fully supportable, fully capable of doing it in mobile devices. So we want to make sure the audience get to see how it works entirely on a mobile device, right? So that's the whole point here. So with that, let me switch to the video player here. And I will also have my chat window open here. If there are any questions, feel free to post your questions on the chat window. And when there is logical points during the presentations, I'll review and address any questions as well. All right. With that, let me proceed with this. Thank you. So in here, I'm using a mobile device, and it's basically a screen recording from a mobile device. And the once you log in, I wanted to go through a couple of things here. So the first part of this video is basically logging into the application and navigating to the performance document. So the use case I've taken here is during the performance process. Um, Typically, the performance cycle happens through a longer period throughout a year or so. And towards the final stages of the performance process is when employees do their self-reviews and managers do their manager review and finalize the documents, etc. So the specific use case I'm going to do here is an employee has already done their self review, and this is I'm logged in as a manager, and I'm going to review what the employee has completed, and I'm going to do my manager review feedback and complete the performance process. I'm taking the last step where I can show you how a filled document looks like. That's the reason to do this. So we'll go into consider yourself as you're seeing the final step in the performance evaluation process. So as a manager, I'm basically navigating to my manager self-service page. And in my manager self-service, there is navigate to the team performance style, and within team performance, the team documents, which is the very first style. And I can see I have following documents open for my team members. I will actually, as you can see here, the documents are grouped by the status of the document. So there were documents earlier in the states. If I move it a little bit to the top, I can see there are some documents in the early stages of the performance process, defined criteria. But as I scroll down, the documents are grouped by the documents that are in track progress stage and the documents where evaluation is in progress. And the document that I picked up is for Rosanna Channing, for whom the document is in progress. So I can see that before I go into the document, I'll just pause the video here. When in the summary, I get to see what's the period of the evaluation, when my activity is due. If earlier in the year I have done any preliminary rating, then that shows up as well. Many customers do not do preliminary ratings, they do it towards the end. So this may or may not be applicable depending upon your performance process. So I click in and I'm into the document right now. So I'll close this one. What I'm going to do is I've split this videos into different sections. So let me open the next one. Just give me 1 second here. All right. So now we saw the document being open, and now as a manager, I'm one of the people reporting to me is Rosanna Channing, and I get to see what information is in the document, and then go into working on the document itself. Now, at the document at the top, one of the newer functionality that has been added to this fluid version of performance document is this configurable action list. It's called a more button. The label of the button is more. But this list of actions that are shown is configurable and contextual, meaning we will see this more as an option across various places throughout the performance process. And depending upon who is accessing the document, whether it's employees or whether it is managers, and depending upon what stage the performance process is, whether it is in early stages like defining the goals and criteria, or in the later stages, the action list, the options that are shown here is configurable. So this is a new functionality that has been introduced as part of Fluid Performance document, where there is a highly configurable action list that is contextual depending upon who is accessing, when it is being accessed, and so on. So in this case, for example, the evaluation is already underway, and there are various options shown here that user can click and do. And I think the first one I clicked is to get an overview of the performance process. I can see it's a 7-step process. I went back and I can also see the audit information, like when the process was last updated. So reviewed that information, went back to the document, and I'm just scrolling through to see what the employee has filled in. I can see that the employee has given them the rating of 5. My manager rating is yet to be done on the goal section. Then another competency section, I can see what competencies are there, what weightages are there, and what is the overall employee rating that the employee has given. I can see that Resna has rated herself a rating of 5 expert, and it is pending my rating as a manager. I can see that this information is all available to me. And then along with performance management, if you're using career planning and stuff, that information is part of the document as well. And you get to provide your input there as well as a manager. And I can see all of this info. And just that was a quick walkthrough or a scroll through of the entire document in its long form. But let me bring up the next one, which is essentially the process where we will go through and show you how a manager can work on this document. And actually, I'll play it a little bit further. What I want to do here is one of the important aspects around doing a process in mobile, and that is getting more and more useful these days is the ability to do text from voice, right? So voice to text function. So when we type anything, whether we are typing in a message or any other long text activity on our phone, you can click on that microphone button on the phone and then just speak, and it's going to type your text, or the text voice to text function. And that works very well when you are using your mobile and trying to access fluid pages. So in this example, where there is a long text box, instead of me sitting and typing in a paragraph of what feedback I need to provide, I can actually use my voice to text feature on any phones. And this, in this example, it's an iPhone. I'm just talking to it, and it will type the content. So let me show how, proceed with it to show how that works. So in here, once you start typing, so that's my keypad that pops up. And if you notice at the bottom right corner, there is this microphone option. And when you click that, the microphone, blue highlighted microphone window, sorry, icon appears on this edit box. Then I can basically, I'm actually talking to it now, and it is basically typing in. And of course, depending upon our accent and the way we talk, it's gonna try to type, and it basically once you use it quite a bit, you get more familiar with how it types, and becomes extremely handy to type in long texts. Now, throughout this entire document, I remember all my feedback as a manager. I went through and I basically did a voiceover text typing instead of manually typing it. So I basically click on it and type through what is the feedback I want to provide. Now, the reason specifically to show this is once again, depending upon um, the demography of your organization, the features like this could be very lightly or quite heavily used. But I'll pause here. I wanted to show one more item. So let me pause, go back. And what I meant by that is, for example, I see my daughter texting her friends, and very rarely they type anything. Like they basically talk to the phone all the time and basically send texts that were created by voice control. So that's something that quite heavily used depending upon the demography of your workforce. Younger workforce tend to do this quite a bit. But the reason I paused the video here is the other aspect I wanted to show, which is if we if you remember the previous version of the document that we saw, when I opened the performance document, it was a long document because if you um, visualize how a typical phone would look like, how a device would look like, it has a most of our devices has a vertical layout, so the screen is vertical, and the content, if there is more content to see, it is typically scroll up. We scroll up and down to see and read a longer page if we when we go to any website. So that's exactly how the performance document, the mobile version, fluid version is designed as well. It's a document that is vertically oriented, so you get to scroll through various information. And once you are into any detailed page, so right now I'm into the competency section, and I went through the first competency and provided my rating, etc. But when I go to the top, I can see here, this particular number that you see, 1 of 5, is basically indicating there are 5 different competencies. We saw that on the main document, but I don't have to go back every time and go to the next competency. There is this way to navigate within that section using this option below. So option on that says 1 to 5. So that's the way I'm going to be navigating. So what this does is within the section, you have opened one item, you're able to navigate to the next items using that option. And also the swipe would work as well when you're working on your phone. If you left swipe it, it's going to do the same thing, clicking that option. So I'm going to go through, will provide my rating for each of this competency. Since this is a demo environment, you see a lot of fields. When we typically implement e-performance, we won't be using all the items. We would be using only specific fields and information we want to collect. That's why the form is long. But typically, when you have competencies or goals, etc., you're going to have a couple of standard sections, like there's going to be a rating, and then there's going to be a summary. But all these fields on the top there shows what is possible, what are the delivered fields there, but not something that gets used in most places. So in this case, I'm quickly going through this document to provide a manager rating for all the 5 different competencies that are there. And I'm just focusing on the mandatory information here, which is what is the rating I want to provide and what is the comments I want to add. And once I'm done, I can save. There is an option from the bottom that says back to top, or I can navigate all the way back to top as well. Save the information. And at any point, of course, you can save the information. And this is also a good point to talk about for customers who are already using performance management. There are a couple of features that are there that are currently available in classic performance management. That is the autosave feature, and the autosave feature is also available in the fluid version as well. So in this case, I showed you the user clicked on the save button, but the autosave can also be configured based on the time limit that you set up to say continue to save the document at different intervals as the user is progressing. Okay. So now I'm back to the main page of the document, and I'm back to, I can see that all these sections are filled in. So if I go down to the bottom, I can, once again, in the summary section, there is more ratings and descriptions to be added. So I'm just, once again, voice over typing, where basically I'm talking to. And you can see here 99% of the content that is typed over is accurate. I'm basically talking and it's typing it. In some cases, especially when we are pronouncing a name and stuff like that, it may not accurately translate it or transcribe it, but in some cases, we may need some manual edit as well. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Editing that and through, provide the ratings. And one other important thing to highlight here is, let me take a few steps back. Yeah, perfect. As part of the fluid performance document, there is also this star rating method that's been introduced earlier. It's again, earlier that ratings used to be 1 to 5. Even now, it is there is the same rating model. You can define, however, you can personalize your rating model, whether it is 3-point rating, 5-point rating, you can do that. In addition to that, there is this star rating model as well. So that's one of the new features. As we can see here, both employee has selected 5 stars for themselves as part of self-review. And then the manager has also selected 5 stars as part of the manager review. So the star rating is a feature as part of the fluid performance document. And let me go through and type in. So just doing a quick time check. I think we should be good. All right, so I provided my rating, saved my document again, and I think in this case, I'm assuming I have filled up everything, and I try to submit the document, like finish that step, but it gives me a message that errors found, please fix it, there are comments for all goals, and make sure rating is entered for all goals. Looks like I did not provide a comment or a rating for one of those items, which is the very first one. I can see here the note section doesn't have small dots in it, meaning it's empty. So I provide a quick comment on that one as well. And in this case, I'm basically just typing it in, providing a quick note and complete that activity. And go ahead and save the document and submit the document. Since I'm doing like sharing with the employee my manager rating, it gives me a message that is basically asking for a confirmation before I share it. And now it updates the status saying that this document has now been shared with the to the end of the document. Now, that sort of wraps up what I wanted to show in terms of a demo, but a couple of things I want to call out here. Those who are already using the classic version of performance documents would know that there is a lot of configurable personalized instructions as part of performance documents. So many years when performance documents typically tend to have a lot of instructional text for employees and managers, how to fill out each sections, etc. Now, it intentionally, the fluid version of performance documents have less of instructions. Again, it is all configurable. Customers can go ahead and add instructions to any sections. But given that when employees, managers tend to work on smaller devices when they try to go through the process, the amount of instructions typically is low. And once the document is configured in such a way that it's intuitive to use, obviously there is less need for instructions as well. So there is a significant reduction in terms of all the configured instructions that are available. But in every section, instructions can be added, and wherever you see there's small icons like three dots and there's chevron icons, they can be expanded and to have instructions in the document as well. So just giving you an FYI there. So one of the changes that many customers that have called out is when we go from classic to fluid, the amount of instructions shared or provided to the employees is less. Okay. All right. I'll pause here. I will see if there are any questions. Looks like I do see some. So let me see if I can address them. And feel free to post any question. I'll go back to the presentations and cover a few things. But before that, I'll see if there are any questions. Maybe getting ahead, how does the new 862 landing page change navigation to the performance document? There are new features, enhancements in Form 53 to consider incorporating. So once again, I think the new landing page, obviously, it's complete redesign. In 862 new landing page is a complete redesign from what we have. Actually, they're not even called home pages anymore. It's landing pages. So makes it easier to get. Once again, the fundamentals of it hasn't changed. Employee self-service, you have my performance and my documents to get to. So it's going to be 2 or 3 steps to actually get to the document. Team performance, same way. You get to your team documents, choose an employee and view their document. So the number of steps, I'm not expecting that to change. However, within the new landing page design, there is ability to add some of the most frequently accessed items on the top, so it could be made more visible. So minor changes, nothing significant. The number of steps to get to the document is going to be very similar, because even earlier it was a very efficient way. There is a performance style, and within that you basically open the document. So I'm not expecting much to change.
Hey, Logesh, this is Jeremy.
Yes,
Do you want me to add something to that?
Absolutely, Jeremy. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, this is Jeremy Pelly. I'm the strategist at Oracle. And so the Logesh is exactly right. Everything's pretty much is the same under My Access. There's still a tile that we deliver that is for performance, and under Team, there's still a tile. The only big difference is if you choose to use the suggestions and the continue with, is that there's now at the top, if you can have the suggestion. So if you just start performance, you can have a suggestion that tells people to go into performance directly at the top, or if they're in the process of their performance document, you have that continue with section now that you can have performance be right there. So.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. Actually, we also have just brought up R53 and started playing with it. Maybe for the next session, I will have one handy with that as well. And Jeremy, maybe another quick item that if you could also assist. I know the question is around any new features in PUM 53 to consider incorporating. I know there has been some minor additions every PUM image. Anything major in 53 that you can call out, Jeremy?
Not really in 53. So 53 really was all about the landing page, and was so we had it was really an all hands on deck to get all the landing page stuff done. So we didn't come out with anything specifically new for performance other than the continue with and the suggestion for performance in image 53.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it. All right, I think that's the only question I have. So let me go back, but feel free to post any questions. We still do have time to cover them. So now, with the demo out of the way, in terms of few other things, maybe I'll go through this list, and this is primarily for people who are using classic version and want to know what sort of delta, and there is a delta list here. We already saw many of them, but if there are anyone who is completely new wanting to implement performance management in PeopleSoft, then all this is part of the package that you'll be implementing. So this doesn't like stand out for those users. So as we already spoke, it's a complete redesigned document layout optimized for any device, and that's the exact version we saw that through mobile functions. The More Actions menu is on multiple locations throughout the document, and it's a configurable section with users can control the order in which they see things. They can prioritize what needs to be at the top and what actions need to be there. We saw about the stars. So provide rating, the star rating method is now available. Ability to assign the order in which rating values appear in the drop down. So we saw that the ratings sometimes, depending upon how you configure it, could be a straightforward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a description with each of those. Or some companies, or many companies these days, are moving away from the model of 1 to 5 rating and have more descriptive rating method, like the overall rating that we saw the company maker is a 5-star rating. And when you do that, if you want to prioritize in which the order in which it appears, instead of any standard option like let's say alphabetical or the numerical order, if it needs to be based on a certain order, that's configurable as well. So that's an importance of that, as many more and more organizations are moving towards a non-numerical rating methods. Ability to add notes and feedback to items quickly and directly from the document details page. We saw that small icon, the notes icon, that users can click easily and add content to it. More importantly, what's not called out here is obviously the voice to text, which is more a device feature. Instead of typing it in, you can actually talk to it. Ability for both employees and managers to submit participant requests. So this was earlier, I believe it was adding participants to the evaluation process was a manager function. Now there is ability to do it for both managers and employees in the process. In this particular demo, due to the time constraint, I didn't go through the entire end-to-end process of start to finish, all the steps involved, which could typically take a much longer time to go through. But the participant review is an optional step in the overall performance process that happens, and we have some customers who provide that capability as well, specifically in scenarios where your workforce, if there is a lot of dotted line reporting in your workforce, like employees are being assigned to projects, so project managers would have to participate in providing feedback. When you have a model like that, then the participant feedback mechanism comes in very handy. Then there is next item is also a follow-up item, ability for both managers and employees to view participant feedback when available. Ability to rate sections, items, and sub-items in the track progress step. This goes into a little bit more detail. Again, depending upon how simple or how elaborate your performance process is, some of the steps may or may not be applicable to you, but these are sort of a punch list of items that have changed from what was there earlier. Or I would say almost all these are like new things that have been added, right? That's the whole focus of this section. Ability to make ratings and comments required in sections. Actually, in the document that we saw, I think it was required. We saw that error message as well when I submitted it without that information, and specify the minimum character count when comments are required. Rich text editor to support for comments, which is exactly what we use to type it in, and display of the approval monitor in the document. So the step that typically happens towards the end of the performance cycle, right after like the one I did, which was the manager step, there is the optional step of sending it for approval before it's acknowledged. So again, that's a configurable option, what sequence it need to happen, whether the acknowledge comes before or after approval. But that typically happens almost every customer where we have implemented approvals are used, where it goes to the manager's manager or department head or somebody of that nature to get approved before it is finalized. So there is information to view, kind of an audit page that we saw earlier, see where in the approval process it is. There is ability to see where the document is in the approval process. Comes in very handy when you have a multi-step approval process. Some of our customers do that. We have customers who have 5-step approval process for performance documents. So comes in handy to see who is it pending with, right? So that's the purpose of that. So all these are enhancements. So since then, I believe even every release, since the original release, there have been updates. Some of this came at later times as well, and it continues to be enhanced based on feedback, earlier after feedback and idea section, etc. Okay, I'll see if there are any other questions in this. I don't see anything. Right, we'll move forward. Now, here is a quick snapshot of the configuration page, just to give you an overview of the feature that I mentioned earlier, which is the more action. In this case, the actual technical terminology is the fluid pop-up menu, the more button that we saw there. And there is an effective dated configuration option that, as I said, provides a very granular level of control in terms of what needs to be shown contextually, depending upon where the process is and depending upon who is accessing it, etc. So as we can see here, there is, of course, the first effective dated item 1/1900 is system data. Obviously, when we implement, if any changes are needed to the delivered list, then we add a new effective dated row that becomes the customer configuration, and we start using that and make changes. And so far, we have had only scenarios where customers wanted to remove some of these items that they feel it's not necessary for their workforce. We haven't had a scenario where anything new to be added, but it's all config now. When to control what step, what type action, what type of document it is, where in the process it is, that is controlled by the step option here, and then what actions we want to allow. And in this case, all these are delivered actions, which means using these configurations, there can be customer defined actions added as well. Okay. All right. Now going to a very important part when it comes to implementing Fluidity performances. And this is essentially info or lessons learned and experiences collected as we implement for different customers over the last couple of years. Starting with, given that it is a cyclical process that happens most likely once a year, in some customer cases at different points during the year as well, the recommendation is to switching over from classic to Fluidity performance after you have wrapped up one set of the documents and before you get into the next cycle and generate new documents for the next period. Better to switch it over because a couple of reasons. One, the change management effort associated with a performance document change like this, where every year when we work with customers, typically depending upon their duration and dates and how many days they give employees to do their parts, manager to do their parts, towards end of the performance cycle is always a rush period where most employees try to get that done in last minute, managers try to get to do it in last minutes to close out the cycle. Very busy period, and introducing any change mid-cycle just causes a lot of unnecessary change management, more change management effort, and more importantly gives the workforce another reason to delay things, right? And training and more challenges in that way. So best way to do it would be to wrap up an open cycle, and before a new performance cycle starts, get to use configure the new form and using it. And a very important thing to remember is the actual implementation effort to switch from classic to fluid is, from a system standpoint, is very minimal, lightweight change. What I mean by that is Fluid e-performance uses the exact same data structures, tables that were used by the classic performance documents. So the underlying data structure is exactly the same. Of course, the new features, new functionalities would mean some new things getting added, but there is no fundamental change in the underlying data structure. So the performance documents you were using earlier, the sections you had configured, all of them are still going to apply. It is essentially looking at what changes you want to do for the next cycle from a business process point of view, and then evaluating in the newer version, in the fluid version, how does your performance document look like with your configuration, and what tweaks you may want to make in terms of either a process, like we saw things like features like employees can now add participants. So do you want to enable that feature? So making decisions on what you want to do in your performance process. Is there anything else that you want to tweak? And how does your document looks in the newer format? Do you want to um, add any other sections to it, or especially when it comes to instructions and text catalogs, do you need to make any tweaks to it? So that kind of a delta review is what is needed. We are not configuring a net new module, so the effort from a system standpoint is relatively small. However, from involving the right subject matter experts from the business side to review and work with the analyst or IT side of the group to make sure the new document is reviewed, any new features, if needed, can be added before you create the new documents. That's the standard effort. That's what many customers do. However, if your performance management process is currently like it hasn't been reviewed for a long time, it's relatively old, and if you want to use this opportunity of switching to a newer document format to improve your performance process, like what has been your feedback from your workforce over the years, if the document is too long or if the approval process is too cumbersome, if there have been feedbacks that you want to address, then you can optionally try to be transformative with this change, not just a system change from the look and feel and usage point of view, but from a process change as well. You can use this opportunity to make it happen, in which case the process around sort of redesigning your performance workflow would be longer. So the upfront effort to work with your business to define a new version and how you want to do it, what improvements to make would be longer. But the system effort is still relatively smaller compared to implementing it fresh. Okay. So just wanted to clarify that. I see some questions coming through. Let me address that before I move forward. Right. Do configuration changes like more action apply to any active template or only templates with cycle period dates that follow after the change? Ideally, since effective dated, we want to make sure the way we do when we implement these new features or make any changes is we try to keep this effective dates all in sync. So for every performance cycle, we would tell our customers to have a new effective date for the templates, newer effective dates for the text catalogs when they're making changes. So, and ask them to align it all for the same date. So let's say it could be 10/1/2025, sync all the dependent configurations to the same effective date. This would be the new configuration would follow under the same policy as well. Try to keep all of that in sync. But to your question about once, let's say your performance cycle is already on, you're already using the documents and you are making a change to the document with specifically the more section, it would appear starting the new effective date that you have added. It's not, even if the document is already created, the document is referring to in real time what's the current configuration that I need to use, right? So there is no, it's not like the prior information when the document was created is going to be used. Okay, so but we need to make sure the current information is in sync, whatever is the format that you want to use. Okay. Next one is we have many any campus using classic e-performance and all use different cycles, so it'll be impossible to switch to fluid at the end of cycle. What issues will occur when we switch to middle of a performance cycle? Okay. So I think this is more a more broader question, especially when you talk about multiple campus situation. Totally understand the rationale behind it. However, I think my first question would be is, does every campus have their own version of performance templates or performance document templates, or are they all using the same template? If it is multiple performance template, then there is of course a lot of flexibility, because if you even make a change, it's not going to impact other campuses. But if everybody is using the same template, then that is going to be a challenge in terms of how to handle it. However, the system does not prevent you from rolling it out to different groups at different time frame. It is entirely about the process management on how you do it. What I mean by that is, let's say if every campus is using their own performance templates, then you can work on that performance template specifically when it comes to fluid, if depending upon what additional items you want to have as part of your template or remove as part of your template. You can make that with an effective data change. The rolling out itself, whether you want to use a fluid version of it or a classic version of it, it is predominantly security controlled, right? So all the fluid version, fluid pages, etc., is comes with a new set of permission list that would control what you access. So that will need to be enabled. So the security layer is what would determine who gets what. So if one campus has its own roles, permission list, etc., it gives you flexibility to say, for this particular campus, I want to enable it for the fluid versions. Now, the other considerations here will then comes into play. For example, once you enable it fluid, don't go back to using classic for that particular group, because they have now started using the documents filled in sections. Though all the data, underlying data structure is same, just better to avoid switching back and forth, right? So do not have to go back and forth, but it is technically definitely possible to roll it out to different groups in a phased way, provided your template structure, your security structure is all segregated. If you have one set of roles, permission list, one set of performance template for all campuses, then it becomes a challenge, meaning to roll it out in a phased way, you would have to split it. You would have to create new permission list roles, etc., and control that. That would be the way to do it. So technically, it is doable. Okay. All right. I think we sort of briefly addressed all these 4 items across in terms of considerations. All right, let me just read through to see if I missed anything. Switch to okay, I think this is all good. And though it is not directly part of the fluid e-performance feature, as part of PEM 46, there is the performance management insights was introduced. So this is a separate packaged item, so you can selectively choose to just do fluid performance documents, but also additionally you could, if you're doing selective adoption, or if you're already on a later version of PEM image, you could also make use of the performance management module insights feature. So depending upon your tools version, if whether you're using Kibana for your dashboards insights, or now from 861 if you're using Open Search. In both formats, both underlying technologies support this. So there are 2 sets of performance management insights that are available. One is in terms of the document insights, meaning this is more operational in terms of for your performance administrators to see where in the process is the overall, whether it is the entire organizations or managers to see where in the process overall is their team, by based on the performance cycle process that you have defined, depending upon the number of phases like defined criteria, evaluation in progress, checkpoint 1, checkpoint 2, you can see how many employees are where in the process. And then there is also document review by rating. If the rating is already in there, then the document counts by those ratings as well. Then there is another um, insight, which is the rating insights, which is not operational, but this is more strategic in terms of the purpose of it is how is the organization faring in terms of their performance, not in terms of doing the performance process, but in terms of actually performing in the organization. So you're essentially more useful to the leaders in the organization to sort of deep dive into the overall where their groups or the entire organization or subgroups, how the organization is performing, what ratings they are falling under. And again, we have a separate session just on the insights functionality. These are like sort of drillable insights. You can drill down, filter it to the specific parts, get lot of useful information. So there is two sets of insights. So one is the performance process level insights, that is the document insights, and one is the actual performance insights, which is the rating insights. And then there is within this performance insights, the insights is available for admins, typically the performance admins or HR admins in the org, or the team information, which is essentially insights for managers in the organization as well. So insights can be enabled for as part of manager self-service as well, where the scope of their insight is going to be for their team. Okay. All right. With that, that was the last item I had, and there is a quick slide here for reference information and a couple of links. Actually, the video feature overview on YouTube that came out with when this functionality was released is excellent, goes through in very detail. And as part of our implementations, our focus have been to see how this functionality works from a mobile point of view, right? Given that this is intended in future to be used for audiences that are going to be younger demography, the mobile version comes in very handy. So that's why we wanted to focus on showing how the application behaves on a mobile device as part of this demo. So with that, I will wrap it up. I think we're almost on time. We have a minute left if there are any questions. If not, I see a post from Mike that gives you an option to enter into a raffle for $200 Amazon gift card. So if there are no questions, I'll wrap it up here. All of you have a great conference and enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Logesh, and thanks for everybody for attending this session and for attending Reconnect.